Welcome to another image critique from the Digital Photo Rec Flickr group, and a few of you shared from 500 pics, which is wonderful as well. We're not doing Facebook this week. Don't like the visual method view that Facebook provides, but we'll talk about that later. Before we get into it, well, I do want to tell you that I'm Toby.
And I'm Christina.
And we are excited to be critiquing almost all of the rest of your pictures that you posted 2 weeks ago for a call. Now, you are supposed to be currently working on an assignment, motion. You're showing motion and not using flowing water. So, that's out, but there's still a lot of other ways to show water. That comes from one of the readers. I can't remember who it was. Ben, Robert, I don't remember, sorry. But we'll be looking for those next week, and I hope to get out at least a blog post, maybe even a video on how to do some panning shots as one way to show motion. So with all that said, we're going to dive right into critiquing this image, and we got one from John W. right here. Christina, you want to kick this off?
Sure. I love this image. I love these flowers. They're really beautiful, and the exposure is great. The color looks great as well. It feels a little bit unstraightened to me. It feels a little bit crooked, and there are some distracting elements on the top right of the image, right here. But otherwise, I think it's great. I wish the what would you call these blooms?
Heads of the flowers.
Yeah, that this was more in focus. It becomes a little bit of a distracting element because it's just out of focus, and then these guys are the ones that are in focus. So I think it would be a little bit better if maybe you cropped off from this side just a little bit, and then it would be better if this one was in focus, and then if you straighten the photo just a little bit. Otherwise, I love the light. It looks like they're backlit, so there's really nice rim lighting around all of these, just kind of highlighting them. So nicely done.
Yeah, that's what I would just echo those good parts. Really love the look and feel, general look and feel of this image, and the light is really nice here. But I think cropping in, getting your focus to start earlier would make this a stronger image. Thanks so much, John. Now I've got Alvaro. My 2-year-old daughter loves jumping from the couch. This is cute.
It is adorable.
She's jumping? You didn't throw her?
Seems like she's jumping.
Okay. I love her PJs too. They're cute.
Yeah. So the first thing that really stands out to me about this picture is that you've had two different light sources. You have one light source coming from the top left of the image and top right of the subject. And then you have direct flash. Because I can see the shadow in her eye, behind her, and the catch lights in her eyes.
And we also have an EXIF data down here saying the flash did fire.
Mm-hmm. And I don't love the on-camera flash. I think it's a little bit, it flattens images just a little bit. The exposure could be a little bit higher, I think, too. I think this image could be exposed up just a little bit, or brightened. Otherwise, it's a really awesome capture. You capture the perfect moment when she's just in the air and smiling and laughing, and perfect expression and everything. I love her little curls. They're adorable.
They're floating.
They're floating, and she's floating, and it's great. I would cut this out, or just mask it in Photoshop, get rid of it, and then maybe crop in down here just a touch. So just crop in to get rid of some unnecessary foreground bottom part of the image.
Yep, I'd say this shadow back here is definitely distracting, and that was the on-camera flash that created that. I also would like, for future jumping exercises, I would like to see a little bit more context of where she's going to land, and so I do like how kind of close in and how she fills the frame. That's good, and we talk about that so much. but I think there is also the potential here to make a strong image with kind of like the potential of where she's going. So that's something to think about as well. Yep. And also, I was going to say back up and zoom in a little bit also is another way, because you're very wide there. But, it works fine for her. Great. Thanks, Alvaro.
So this next image is from Jason, and it's an old packaging plant. And the first thing that really stands out to me about this image is the angle that it was captured from. And I think it's a really great angle. I love the way the branches and the trees and even the shadow are kind of framing this doorway and leading the eye in to here. I really, really like the perspective. I don't love that this is touching the top of the screen. I don't love that. There's a little too much foreground. You could have tilted the camera up just a touch. But otherwise, it's great. And then the exposure is perfect. You're not clipping any shadows or any highlights, even though there's a lot of contrast. It's a high contrast situation. And you handled that really well. You exposed manually and did it perfectly. So well done. It's a little bit blue for me. It's a little bit cold, so maybe you could increase
warm it up a little bit.
The temperature just a touch.
Yep. And I noticed also that you're shooting manual mode, f2.8 and 1/1600th of a second. Yeah, I would switch these around. And you could slow that shutter speed down a little bit and open and close your aperture down a little bit. It looks sharp enough all over, but there's no real reason to be shooting at the maximum aperture of that lens in this case. And this is actually the lens I was just using to shoot with the GH4. Jason, I want you to tell me a little bit about how you like the GH3. I have to say we really liked the GH4. My review of that will be coming, but we talked a little bit about in the podcast as well. Before I noticed that the top up here was, I did what Christine always does. My eye followed this old chimney up here and noticed that was cut off. But Christina's comment of kind of getting rid of the foreground and tilting up just a little would bring that all in. And I too also like the capture here and the angle. Nicely done, Jason. Thank you.
So this image is by Aaron Black, and it's a panorama. It looks like maybe a 21:9 format or aspect ratio, which is pretty cool. Does it say?
It doesn't.
Doesn't seem like
we're getting good metadata, so it could possibly just be cropped to this and not,
which is great.
And
I think that it's great to crop images when they're the background and foreground aren't that interesting, just to reduce the negative space and really close in on the image. It can really make some images seem a lot bigger because of the aspect ratio. Panorama crops, like a 21:9 or a 16:9 even, have this, I don't know if it would be grammatically correct to say they have this ability, but whenever you do that, it makes it feel a lot larger, a lot bigger, a lot more expansive and wider than if you just left it at the standard 4:3 or 2:3 aspect ratio. So anyway, moving on. I love the motion in the water, and I love that the highlights, there's no hot spots really. All of the lights are very nicely balanced, so I'm curious to know if I don't think this is a double exposure or a composite or anything. I just think that
the lighting was just right, and Aaron nailed it.
Yeah, I think you nailed the ambient and the shutter speed in order to get just a little bit of motion, but still not blow out all the highlights, which can easily be done with a scene like this. So really well done.
What is the shutter speed? The shutter speed is 1 second. Yeah. The only catching my eye is this green light here from, I think, up here. It's funny how much brighter and greener it is. That I may have dealt with that.
Just to saturate a little bit.
Yeah. And then this piece of pier here, so black and dark catches my eye. Those are really minor things. This reflection through this kind of inner puddle on the beach is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. Overall, great image. Really like it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Manhattan from Krishna.
Very nice. This looks like a little bit like an HDR black and white. There's a little bit of, there's a lot of clarity in the edges, which is what leads me to believe that it might be an HDR. But maybe it's just very contrasty, and the contrast has been set to be very high. It's great. I love the clouds. The clouds are really awesome. To me personally, I don't find the foreground all that interesting. I don't really find the water all that interesting, or these rocks all that interesting. I'm sure they're, you know, if you found them interesting, that's great. What I would do if I had taken this image, I probably would have cropped this and made it a panorama, and then I think that this with the clouds will look really awesome. That's not to say that the foreground doesn't add anything. It just doesn't speak to me that much.
I think my first thought when I saw it was that there's some strength in this as a leading up to here, but there's just a lot of it. And the city skyline is exposed and so crisp, and those clouds back there, I think they're strong enough on their own that you don't need anything leading to them, so I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah, and it's such a clear kind of day. Oftentimes Manhattan be so hazy, and you know, you don't get to see all of the buildings in this way. So
May 24th, neat.
Yeah, it's very cool that, you know, you were able to capture the scene, because I think that, you know, it's not very often that it happens.
Yep. Putting this on my list. From Liberty State Park, Jersey City. Be a cool place to visit.
Yeah.
Take my own shots. Great. Thank you, Krishna. Very nice shot.
It's very cute.
Wow. Tim has got little kiskadee, some type of kiskadee, I think. Bird who's in the middle of falling or landing.
Or flying?
Or flying.
We're not quite sure what's going on here.
Yep.
But it's very cute. My first observation of this image is that the bird looks a little bit soft. There's motion blur from his movement, but that's not that big a deal to me. It's more of him, and then I guess the resolution is pretty low as well, so that might be some of it.
Yep.
I may have cropped more of the bottom, maybe.
I'd crop in the bottom, and I would crop in more. There's just extra space down here that doesn't really add. Your watermark is very pixelated there.
Yeah, the resolution isn't super high, so there's not a whole lot that we can. Or there's a lot of confusing information to us. We can't really tell what's in focus all that well.
No. But I think it's a great moment.
Yes.
Very fun. And I'd like to know a little bit more of the story behind it, which always makes a picture worthwhile if it, you know, is interesting enough to want to know more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I keep circling this area here because I really think it would be stronger cropped in there like that.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yep. And higher resolution. We'd like to see that. Thanks, Tim. Oh. Somehow Tim got 2 in here. Just 1 Tim. Jonathan Scott, Blue Light Special. I wonder if that's a term that people don't... that was Kmart in the old days. They literally used to wheel a cart to certain aisles with flashing blue lights. And it meant that there was some kind of sale there. And I don't know if they were the first to do it. They were the first I knew about it. I always wanted them to go drive that cart to the Lego aisle. And be like, Lego's on sale!
All right, so I love the reflection of the lights in this image. I feel like there is way too much sky and way too much foreground, that everything else just does not seem as interesting as it would be if you just zoomed in and closed in on one thing. It just feels like a little too much. You know, there's a lot of dead space right here and a lot of dead space right here, and then there's this intersecting thing. It's just kind of
piling.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be the subject. And so the fact that it's so prominent on the image and in a spot where it could potentially be, considered a subject or a focus in the image makes it a little bit distracting. And then it seems like there's also a city over here that's kind of cut off. So that's a little bit of also a distracting element because my eye wanders out from this stuff, these like really cool repetitive patterns and texture and reflection, to like this where there's a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, I feel like crop in, maybe showcase just a few of these arches with the bridge and the reflection. I think the reflection is really cool. The exposure is really well done. I love the blue. The tone of this image is really, really nice. Looks very dusky, very beautiful. Otherwise, I just crop in and I think you'll have a stronger image.
Yep, this feels a little Christina heavy show tonight, but that's okay because you're saying great things. I think there's a neat, a minimalist approach here, which has some strength to it. Just a lot of blue and a lot of blue, but it could still be very strong and very minimalist because this piling right here is very distracting, being right in our face. It's also unclear to me if this blue light is on the piling or off in the distance over there on the bridge, and so that confusion detracts some as well. But the blue is very cool. But this is a place where you just, what Christina said, crop in there and get it neat. F13, 25 seconds. Very cool, very smooth water from that. Thank you, Jonathan. And we had also mentioned this before. I still feel strongly about it. I feel like this O needs to get moved. Your watermark needs to get moved just a little bit away from the edge. A little breathing room. Thank you.
So why don't you take this one?
So, well, I didn't say I had any problems with it being a Christina show because you were saying wonderful things. I'm just sitting back. All right, Jeremy's at the Georgia Aquarium, which I have heard is one of the world's best and most amazing aquariums. And this is a great shot. Now, I've seen this is a common shot. I've done a similar one in an aquarium as well before. This kind of crowd in wonder is what I would call it. And it's just the folks silhouetted against the tank. And I think this is great. The first thing I'm looking for to be critical is it uneven down here? But it looks fairly even. But they're just cut off a little awkwardly in a couple places. So if you could have given them just a little bit room right to the floor, maybe would have made that a little bit better down there. But everybody clearly looking up at this whale shark creature here coming by is very cool, and I think it's a strong image. We got one person cut off over here on the right. Either cut them off all the way or include a little bit more of them. So really my only beef is down here at the bottom of the image. I think otherwise, really nice shot.
Yeah, I would say I agree. These images are really hard to take. You have to really wait for the perfect moment where everybody's standing still. And nowadays, I feel like so many people are taking pictures of this instead of really enjoying it and looking at it. So it becomes even harder to just get a really strong image. Plus, everybody's moving, and so I just kind of like wanted to acknowledge that this is not an easy image to create, even though it seems to be a popular image that a lot of people do want to create. Mm-hmm. So I would have gone with a vertical crop or a portrait crop, maybe singling out these people and this part of it. I feel like it's too much this way, and there's empty space, a lot of dead space right here, and then these people are just kind of distracting over here, and this part is cut off. I may have just waited a few more moments and then tried. I mean, maybe with the fish the way that they are, it wouldn't have worked so well. Like if you were to crop this one in particular, this shot in particular, it wouldn't work so well. But singling out
because fish would have gotten cut off.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna disagree though, because I mean I understand why you're saying that, but I really like this. The landscape orientation here gives an example of the vastness of this tank.
That's true.
And the animals in it.
Yeah.
And the people add a nice scale. And
right.
If it was just a portrait shot there, just a vertical, it could be very cool, but I don't think it would get that same scale.
Well, I think compositionally that's why I made that suggestion, but I do agree that the landscape does show more of the whole space.
Okay. Yep. And I think you did a really nice job with exposure here.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Because the people are pure silhouettes, and that's great.
Right.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. You're also shooting with a Tokina 11-16. I'd love to know how you feel about that lens. I'm going to be talking about it in more detail soon. Baojun.
A really nice golden hour image.
Glow of sunset.
It's beautiful.
This is one of those ones that I think, I don't think, Baojun, you participated in our double take assignment, which was to look at a scene, figure out what you really wanted to capture here, and capture just that. Because we have, I think the exposure here is nice, the colors are nice, but we got this zigzaggy dock going on. We got some water, zigzaggy dock, some more water, cool kind of lighthouse, and then a cityscape in the background. So there's a lot. It feels like right there is maybe 4 different pictures. Ziggy-zaggies and reflection, lighthouse, cityscape. And so capturing all of that in this, and it's got layers to it, which is good, but they're all almost completely in focus. And the other good thing is the lighthouse is nicely framed between those buildings in the background, but it feels like a lot going on.
I'm going to disagree with you. I do think there are a lot of elements in this image, but I think that they're very, very cleanly framed and composed and arranged. I think that the start of this lines up pretty perfectly with this part of the image. So you go from here right up to here. So there's no like eyes wandering to, like, I feel like my eye jumps to all of these different elements. It doesn't like, you know, go out of the frame. I really like it. I think the composition is really, really great. And this is how images like this should be composed. Just very clean, making sure, you know, like the angle, the height where you were from, or you were taking this picture from, is perfect, I think, because it shows all of this. If you were like straight in front of it, you know, it wouldn't have worked as well because it wouldn't be leading your eye up to this part of the image. But no, I disagree with you. I think that there are a lot of elements, but I think they're very, very nicely and cleanly composed. So I think this image is great.
All right. Thank you, Baojun.
So this is a really sweet capture. I love the hat because well, one, it looks really cute, but also it shields her from harsh sunlight. And so what we've got is a really nice kind of open shade type portrait. So her face is nicely exposed and the background is nicely exposed. I don't see a ton of distracting elements. I think that, you know, there's some colors right here that are a little bit distracting. And this could be kind of, yeah, but no, it's not. To me, it's not a huge deal. And the expression is great. And the capture is great. Her skin looks a little bit pink to me, but I think that might just be the screen. So
I think she's been running around in the hot sun
that
too.
That too, probably. Yeah. No, great photo.
Yeah, it's great. And I just echo the comment. We can see a little bit of sunlight peeking through the bits of the hat there onto her face. And so if she didn't have that on, she would have a bright splotch of light right on her face. And so the hat is doing a really nice job in the expression. And we are almost perfectly at eye level, which all make these make this a strong image, and that's good. Yeah, this gap here was catching my eye some. We can just kind of crop in. Christina, would you say it'd be okay to crop off the top of the hat?
No, I would not do that.
Yeah. So not quite crop in that much, but enough to get rid of that gap on the side there. Nice. Thank you, Ralph. Roger's got a mallard pair humming in for a landing.
That's so cute.
That's cool. And it's the first thing that jumps out at me is it's sharp.
Yes.
These ducks are frozen in motion. 1/1000th of a second. 191 millimeters. I'd love to know what lens you were shooting with. This is great. This is one of those ones where I feel it's like a little hard to critique because here is this millisecond in time, you know, where they're passing in front of your lens, and of course you can follow them with your lens. So it's hard to say what else to do, but it would be nice if framed just a little bit so there wasn't an intersection with this brighter green
Yeah.
bit of vegetation back here. But the lighting is great because again they're backlit. Oh, is it Roger who I think has asked us about shooting birds? Especially he came back swans. We had talked about it. It was one of the reader questions in the last mishmash. How to get detail out of backlit subjects, and specifically not ringing any bells.
I'm not remembering that
Okay.
question, no. I think this image is great, and I think that, that I don't think it's a huge deal that the wing is intersecting with that.
I don't think it's a huge deal
so
either,
out of
but
focus that it's good. And I think the composition is great. I wouldn't do anything differently. It's just a great capture, and there's not a ton of distracting things that really pull my eye out from it. And well done with it being so sharp, because these images are really hard to get. So probably a lot of patience on your part, and then just the perfect settings. Yep. And it looks like you were shooting it using shutter speed priority. So very nice.
Yep, and the nicer high ISO to make sure that your aperture wasn't swinging around too much. So I'm almost positive it was Roger, and he specifically asked about swans more recently after we talked about his mishmash question. He wrote back, and
is it the one that we suggested exposed in the middle and then bring out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. For swans, though, I shared your suggestion of wedding dresses, and that actually to make sure you're not blowing out any details, because what he's finding is underexposed just a little bit to bring that detail back in post.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Good. Just wanted to hear you say that. Back it up. Great. Thank you, Roger. Eric. First thing I like about this is that it's not your typical flower capture. We're underneath the flower looking up. And that right there gives it good marks. He said, look, I wanted to try a more unique perspective on the plain old flower shot. I nearly had to crawl under my house to get a shot of this rose. Well, kudos, Eric, because I think that makes it a strong shot. I think I get so many questions for beginners to DSLRs who say, I want to take more flower pictures. And I did the same thing. I took tons of flower pictures because they're such willing subjects. They're there, they're pretty, they have nice detail, it's easy to do, but it's very hard to make an interesting flower shot because
there's so many of them.
Yes. Yeah. So I think this is great. I love it. I love the lighting, the light coming through the petals, and that gives us a sense of more of the flower up there because we're seeing some of the shadow from the other petals. The detail in there and the focus right in this section. What were you shooting with? The 55 to 250 STM. Yes, that is a nice lens. I have been impressed with it. So I think this is great. Your exposure is great. Only thing, some of this here is a little too much in my face. It almost frames, which is good, but then there's just a little too much of it.
I don't think that's a big deal.
Okay.
I love this image for all the reasons that you just said. I would like to see it just a little bit brighter. I feel like it's too dark for me. And again, that's just a personal aesthetic thing. If you like the exposure, then that's great because it's a great image. It's also a little heavy on the vignette for me as well.
Oh, yes.
And that's another aesthetic thing.
Up here.
But it does not look supernatural.
Over here it's kind of hidden.
Right. Yeah. So I would watch for the vignette. Vignettes are great because it draws your eye back, really back to the subject, but they're too heavy, then they can become a distraction. That vignette on the top left, it almost looks like a triangle that, would lead your eye away from the image, and you don't really want to do that. But yeah, great shot. I love the perspective. I think it's awesome.
Nice. Thanks, Eric. And we have time for one more.
Oh, I'm glad we got to this one.
Doru. Penguin kiss.
This is a really sweet picture. I love this picture. I have no constructive criticism for this image. Do
you have any unconstructive criticism?
Other than the stick that's sticking out of the wall.
Right there.
But yeah, I mean, I really love the framing. It seems like, I don't know if you soften the background or if it's just the combination of the grain plus the
51.8.
and it was shot at 1.8. Oh
Yep.
yeah, that'll do it.
Yep.
But it's super sharp and the light is lovely, and I love the black and white. I really do. Um, yeah, and the grain.
I'm almost getting teary.
Really?
Really. It is fantastic. The moment between these two is just really super sweet.
Wow, there you go. You have made him cry.
I didn't say I was crying. I just said I was getting teary.
All right. Well,
All right.
yeah, this is a great image. This is a great image to end on.
Good. Thanks so much for watching, folks. If you'd like to see your images critiqued, follow along, keep an eye on Facebook, and hey, subscribe for my newsletter because there's going to be some special opportunities for newsletter subscribers as far as critiques go in the very near, well, that's not said very near, but near future. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Work on your motion assignment. I want to have to do 2 weeks worth of critiquing motion assignments. That's how many I want. So thank you. Have a good night.
Good night or day.